Mistake 131. Engaging in email wars. Thank you to Amy Frankel of Impact Instruction for suggesting this mistake made by many women who would rather have it out in emails or texts than face-to-face. I hate to admit it, but I too have gone a few rounds with people in an email war. These types of interactions are rarely satisfying and never productive. A poison pen email may make you feel better in the moment, but if you're anything like me, you later regret not taking the high road. There are a few exceptions. Let's go back for a minute to the difference between transactional and personal relationships. The former is one where goods or services are exchanged on a one-time or infrequent basis, whereas the latter are long-term relationships with people I know, like, or want or need to have in my life for one reason or another. You may choose to confront in writing someone with whom you have a transactional relationship. It may serve the purpose of documentation or providing detailed clarity about your concerns. This is certainly acceptable and understandable. On the other hand, if you do the same thing with people with whom you have a personal relationship, you will most likely escalate the problem and damage the relationship. In this case, you have also given the other person ammunition in writing that can later be used against you if you were inappropriate, vulgar, or mean-spirited in your communications. Coaching tips. When using written communications to confront an issue, keep it factual, civil, and professional. If you wouldn't make the comment to someone's face, don't say it in an email, text, or letter. If 2 rounds of correspondence don't solve the problem, it's time for a face-to-face. Another reason why you want to remain civil. Avoid the inclination to respond in kind to inappropriate correspondence that you receive. Stooping to the level of the other person will ultimately backfire on you. Don't copy everyone in your address book on your correspondence where problems or concerns are discussed. It's not about getting people to take sides. It's about resolving the problem. Mistake 132. Going for the bait. After a keynote that I did for Nestle's Women's Affinity Group, where I requested input for the update to this book, Jeanette Rojas, a financial analyst with the firm, came up to me and said she hoped I might touch on being a lesbian in the workplace. At first, I struggled to find a place to put it because I couldn't associate being a lesbian with a mistake per se. I followed up with her by phone to find out more about her thinking and realized she was talking about the way you respond to people in the workplace who are either curious about or uncomfortable with your sexuality. I asked Jeanette if she felt as if it were her responsibility to educate people who ask inappropriate questions or make inappropriate comments. To her credit, she said she did not. She believes who she is, acting with authenticity in all aspects of her life, speaks for itself. In other words, she doesn't go for the bait. Instead, she chalks it up to the other person's ignorance or discomfort. Nonetheless, it is a challenge she and other lesbians face when they are out of the closet. You don't have to be a lesbian to be baited. Nice girls get baited in all kinds of ways. People say things that are offensive, off the wall, or thoughtless to women of color, differently abled people, pregnant women, married and not, single moms, and women going through a divorce. When that happens, you have to make a decision. Address the comment or ignore it. If you address it, you're sometimes thought of as defensive. If you ignore it, you might feel badly about yourself or internalize a message as true when in fact it's not. The ultimate call about whether or not to go for the bait, particularly when others are making comments of a personal nature, is one that each woman has to make for herself based on her values. With that said, the following tips might be helpful in making that decision. Coaching tips. Give yourself permission to think about how you want to respond to an inappropriate comment or question. One of the things women tell me is that they have a hard time coming up with a response in the moment, but later they think of something they wish they had said. It's okay to think about it, then circle back and say something like, I was thinking about your comment and realized it made me feel uncomfortable because... Before responding, ask the person where the question is coming from. Oftentimes, we realize that what seems inappropriate or baiting is actually coming from a place of wanting to learn more. In this case, you can choose to educate or not. Continue to work on developing a sense of confidence and self-comfort. When we're comfortable and have done the work that's needed to feel grounded with who we are, warts and all, we are far less likely to go for the bait. This comfort allows us to be our most authentic selves rather than feel that we have to explain or defend ourselves. Don't feel as if you have to respond at all if a comment or question makes you feel uncomfortable. Instead, let the person know you're not comfortable answering and change the subject. Mistake 133. Crying. You had to know I would get here sooner or later. You don't need a PhD to know many women cry when they're happy, when they're sad, when they're frustrated, when they're angry, when the sun is shining, when it's not. Well, you get the point. While most women know they shouldn't do this at work, there are times when you just can't help it. You don't need an example. You've either seen it or done it. Let's cut straight to how you can at least minimize it or recover professionally from it. Coaching tips. Don't substitute tears for anger. Women often cry because they've been taught being angry isn't ladylike or acceptable. When you feel the tears well up, silently ask yourself the question, what's making me angry? When you do cry at work, immediately ask to be excused. Don't sit there bawling. It only makes people uncomfortable. By removing yourself temporarily from the situation, you let others off the hook, which they'll appreciate, and give yourself time to become composed. Make it a stock response to say, I hear what you're saying. Give me some time to think about it and get back to you. Studio City-based psychotherapist and business coach Susan Bacascia provides her clients with these 4 tips. Put words to the tears and focus on the problem instead of your feelings. Say something like, as you can see, I have strong feelings about this. Why don't we focus on specific outcomes to solve the problem? Don't be seduced by seemingly humanistic organizations, hospitals, nonprofits, and the like, into thinking crying is okay. Crying gives people the impression you're not in control, not competent, and weak. We like to think there is room for these very human, very real emotions in the workplace, but we're not there. People have negative associations with crying in the workplace, and it crosses gender lines. Women are no more compassionate than men in this arena. If you find yourself welling up frequently or easily, you may want to look inside with a good friend, coach, or psychotherapist. We cry when we're on overload, angry, anxious, hurt, or for a reason appropriate to a situation. If you're welling up a lot, you may find your thinking is too negative or catastrophic. Few things in the workplace are life and death or so dramatic they can't be addressed reasonably well. Keep your emotions from causing you to think the worst. Think positively about what may seem like a very scary experience, and you will cry less. When someone goes for your jugular in a very personal way, don't go for the bait and do set him or her straight. Focus on the content of your conversation by saying something like, Stan, this is not about me overreacting. This is about a workload problem we need to solve.